G'day, my name's Lee and I'm from Pet Search, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use a mechanical cat trap or animal trap. So the first thing I'm going to demonstrate is the opening of the door on the trap. This is probably the part that we get the most questions about and the most concerns. So it does vary depending on the brand of the trap you're using, the size, what materials it's made out of. So I've got two different traps here that I'll be demonstrating on. A medium-sized trap. You can get a smaller trap there, medium-sized, and you can even get one larger that can be used to trap much larger animals, such as larger dogs. This one is particularly useful for cats, possums, and also small dogs. So the difference between this trap and the smaller trap is this has a solid door, it's an aluminium door. So I'll just demonstrate how it opens. So you push this bar down, lift the door up, and there's also an added switch there that you just push up. And the way the door actually stays open is via a small hook here, which you just have to hook on to the door. That is very sensitive, so that's probably the part where when you have a strong wind, it can actually create a false trapping, because the door can actually close if it moves around too much or if the wind's quite strong. So that's just a small little hook there. And what actually happens now is when the animal walks inside, they tread on a weight pad that's at the back of the trap, and the door closes behind them. So you'll see along the side of the trap there's actually a metal rod that connects the weight pad up to this little mechanism that holds the door open. So when that weight pad goes down, this hook comes out. So the only difference between this one and the smaller one is a slightly different mechanism. So similar door opening, lifting up, and this time the small hook still on the same side, but it actually hooks on to a thin metal. So, similar mechanism reaching the weight pad. So the rod goes from the little hook all the way down to the weight pad. This one is probably one of the most commonly used type of traps because most commonly people are trying to trap cats, and this is a lot smaller, a lot easier to transport in the backs of cars and things like that. And also a lot less visible. So if you are trapping somewhere where there's a lot of people walking past, or in an area where there's a lot of visibility, this one's going to stand out a lot more than this one. So the first thing that you want to consider is the placement of the trap. The location is probably a really important part, particularly for cats, as it makes them either more likely or less likely to actually enter the trap. So you want something that's stable, so stable ground, but you also want to increase the likelihood of the cat actually going in by making the actual trap itself more comfortable for them to walk on. It's quite unnatural for cats to actually walk on a metal grate, so if you can increase the likelihood that they'll walk in by simply placing a piece of cardboard on the inside of the trap. So this makes it a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more natural for the cat to be walking on rather than metal, and it has shown to actually increase the likelihood of them entering. So if you are a cat owner, then you probably know that cats enjoy going into hidey hole places, things that offer a little bit of security, safety, a little bit of darkness. So one of the things that has proven to be increasing the chance that you're likely to capture a cat is to be covering the trap. But it also helps, particularly in terms of camouflaging the trap as well, so tries to prevent some theft of traps that you might be using in a place that's quite a public area. So this is just a piece of material, and you can actually just place it over the trap, which makes it a little bit more like a hidey hole, and increases the likelihood that the cat's going to be comfortable entering the trap. The whole success of a trap relies on using food as a lure to get the cat or the other animals to enter the trap. So You may consider it to be probably the most important aspect of the actual trapping itself. So one of the things that some people do make the mistake of is they use food in the trap as a lure, but they also place another food source outside of the trap. And this is one of the difficult things that a lot of owners struggle with, is they want to feed their lost cat, but they also want to trap their lost cat. So if we want to make sure that the trap is going to be successful, we need to remove all other food sources. So if you are trapping in somebody's backyard, like we are today, or if you're actually trapping in another place where there might be other animals and people having food sources around, so feeding their dogs or feeding their cats, then you want to try and make the trap the only place that your lost pet or whatever pet you're trying to catch has the only food source inside the trap. So if there's any way you can ask them to remove the food for their animal at night time when you've got the trap set, then that would be an absolute big help to you. Now the lures to use inside the trap are also very important because different animals like different foods. Today I'll focus on the food that works for cats and has also been shown to work also for dogs. In Australia we have an organisation called the CSIRO. They did some testing on the best food lures for trapping feral cats in Australia. What they found was that sun-rendered prawns, which are prawns left in the sun, proved to be the best lure. And they also found, secondly to that, was sardines were the second best. Sun-rendered prawns are not always easily accessible. It's not something that we would use very often, but we definitely recommend the use of sardines. It has proven to be very successful. So sardines, human grade, would be the best option. Second to that is you do get sardines for cats specifically. So this is something that pretty much anybody can grab from most local grocery stores, convenience stores, anything like that. So you might not always be able to get human grade sardines, but you can definitely get pet grade ones. So the food gets placed at the back of the trap, which is just past the weight pad. Some traps you can get are open at the back, which makes it easy to put the food lure in, but that does prove a challenge when you actually need to seal it again, because if you left it unlocked, then what would happen is the cat or whatever animal you're trying to trap would potentially get out when they're jumping around through the back door. So a lot of them that you get are actually sealed like this one is. So the only way to get the food into the trap is through the front door. So whether you've got a long arm, whether you've got the Go-Go Gadget claw to actually put the food in, or you just shake the trap and slide it down the back. Whatever option works for you. With a larger trap like this, it's a little more difficult than a smaller one where you don't need such a long arm reach. Now this is an important safety aspect, whether it's your pet that you're trying to trap or somebody else's, or a stray or feral animal. Safety of the animal is always considered the utmost important, particularly for trapping, and particularly in Australia where you do get quite extreme heat. One of the safety aspects is the animal itself, when trapped, can be quite distressed. So one of the key things to prepare for is the fact that they'll probably be jumping around or moving around, particularly when you approach the trap to pick them up. So if you have a solid bowl, such as a ceramic bowl or a plastic bowl, this can lead to some injuries with the animal jumping around or trying to get out. The best thing you can use is a paper plate, or if you can't get paper, the second best is plastic. So you just put the lure on there and you slide it in to the trap and shuffle it down to the back. Sardines, as I said, go really well on something like this, but paper is the best option because if they jump around, they're unlikely to hurt themselves with something like paper. So in Australia, you are required by law, if you are using a trap, to check the trap at least once a day. Now in the heat of summer, I would recommend you check it a lot more often than that, as the heat can build up quite quickly, and especially if an animal is trapped in here and if there is no access to any water, then they're going to be distressed and can suffer from heat stress quite quickly. Now this is one final tip, particularly for trying to trap a cat. The CSIRO tested lures, and one of the extra lures that they found can help increase the likelihood of the trap working is including fresh catnip. So if you can, take yourself down to your local nursery and get some fresh catnip. It works much better, and cats respond to it much better than your dried catnip that you can buy in pet stores. Or, like me, you can grow your own. And it really does come in handy, and my cats absolutely love it when I just go and pick a piece off and give it to them, and you can find them rolling around on it. So just throwing this in the trap together with your other lure is well worth the effort. You just never know, it could be the one thing that makes your cat absolutely go crazy and want to go in the trap. So it's worth a try. So where can I get a hold of one of these traps? Well, you do have a couple of options. You can hire or you can purchase them. If you're in Australia, you can hire them from PetSearch, or you can also hire them from other hire companies, such as Kennard's Hire or Coates Hire. Now, keep in mind you want to hire a trap that's suitable for the type of animal that you're trapping. There are some specifically made possum traps, and these work slightly differently to these traps that I've shown you today. So you want to make sure that you're not given a possum trap by mistake. The most obvious difference between the two is that with a possum trap, the lure is actually hung from a hook inside the trap. So that is something to avoid, and I'd even avoid it even if you are trying to catch a possum, because the hook itself can be dangerous. If you are overseas, then any type of hire company that you have in your country that hires out equipment to people, for some people it may be a local council also, or animal welfare agency. So some places are still lucky enough to have quite cheap hire or free hire from animal welfare agencies, whether that be a cat protection society or a dog refuge home or similar places like that. So it's worth looking around to see what options there are in your town. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email us, help@petsearch.com.au, or give us a call, and I will talk over any questions that you have about anything you've seen on this video or any other techniques for finding lost or stolen pets.